Hello, Birth to Boardroom listeners. Before we begin, you may notice a bit of audio thumping in today's episode. As we're only on episode 4, we're still refining and perfecting the production side of this podcast. And in many ways, that feels aligned with what Birth to Boardroom is all about: growth in real time. Leadership isn't about perfection, it's about progress, learning, and it's about showing up authentically along the way. Thank you for being part of this journey with us as we build, evolve, and improve with each episode. Now let's get into today's conversation.
Welcome to Birth to Boardroom. I'm Natalie, and today we're celebrating women who don't wait for permission, don't wait for rescue, and don't wait for someone else to save the day. Because this show is all about women who step into their power and lead with purpose. Before we begin, I want to introduce you to the incredible woman who is behind this movement, and her name is your host, Deb Kowalski. Deb has helped brands stand out, and now she's helping women do the same. As your host of Birth to Boardroom, she brings inspiring conversations with trailblazing women who turned passion into purpose. Deb has helped brands stand out, and now she's helping women to do the same. As your host of Birth to Boardroom, she brings inspiring conversations with trailblazing women who turned passion into purpose and are changing the game from starter to success. Before we get going, I also want to introduce myself. I'm Natalie, a strategic leader who blends clarity, creativity, and courage. I've spent my career building high-performing teams, transforming experiences, and reinventing brands across global boardrooms, bringing energy and a signature Friday feeling flair. Deb, thank you for bringing me into this series. Over to you.
Fantastic, Natalie. Thank you so much for that beautiful intro. I am so excited to be here continuing this conversation about empowerment, growth, and authenticity, all through the voices and stories of inspiring women. It's just been such a journey for us. Boardroom is all about sharing journeys, honestly, because every twist and turn shapes into who we become. Today's guest is someone who truly embodies authenticity, Kelsey Peterson. She's an entrepreneur, musician, and people and culture leader who's redefining what it means to be human at work. Kelsey's journey spans from the creative world of music to the fast-paced tech startup scene, where she now leads with compassion, reflection, and courage. She's also the co-founder of Evermore, an AI reflection tool designed to help people understand themselves and where they want to go next. Kelsey, I want to welcome you to Birth to Boardroom. I'm so thrilled to have you join us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Your theme today, Kelsey, being your authentic self in life and leadership, is one that really resonates deeply with so many women in business. So let's start with your story.
Yeah, so authenticity has always been a big value of mine. My values kind of all spell out voice. It's being vulnerable, having optimism, having integrity, being curious, and just being expressive. And so there's a lot of times in my life where I had to kind of pull myself back from a lot of environments or people or roles. And because I just wasn't feeling like I was able to kind of show myself in the fullest version. And so authenticity, as I kind of got through more of my career, eventually became a people and culture leader and was working with a lot of other managers, I realized that it's really important for all of us to bring our full selves to work, because we then can put ourselves into the work that we're doing that actually makes it better for other people. It's like when you're working with customers, it's really important that you are able to be yourself, because it helps them also feel comfortable to be themselves too. So my journey has kind of taken me through a lot of twists and turns. I see my career as not a ladder, but more of a jungle gym. I've done nonprofit. I've been in recruiting. I have been in software. I've done contract management at a software company before, which was definitely the biggest twist and turn. And I've been a co-founder twice. So this is my second venture. I had two amazing co-founders, Courtney Branson and Scott Hertel. And it's great to go from having your first founder experience to then having a second, because you start to go, oh, I've been here before. Oh, I've done this before. Now I know a little bit more. And you're still going to have that imposter syndrome. You're still going to have those moments of, what am I doing here? I constantly have to remind myself there's a reason I'm doing this. And it's very much from like a very deep, authentic, genuine place. And I just want to help other people kind of tap into that authenticity in their work as well.
You know, you amaze me because you're such a multitasker. You have like, you're all over the board. And I love that about you, that you define yourself in so many various ways. So
Yeah.
you are authenticity at the max, Kelsey. I see that.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I also forgot, this like the biggest thing in my life, is I'm also a songwriter, and I've been doing it since I was 6 or 7 years old. It was like my first way of expressing myself and processing my feelings and understanding how life works. Um, and I actually recently, I think in the last 7 years, I really started becoming more public about it on LinkedIn and in my jobs. And I would talk a lot about, my personal life outside of work. And I feel like the fusion, it's really hard to not bring your personal life into work, and it's really hard not to bring your work life into your personal life. And as much as we try, that's actually how burnout can happen more if you start to separate the two. And so I just find it really fun to be able to talk about it, and it just makes for a great conversation when I interview people or I'm working with other people and they go, how can I find your music? I like to interweave as much as I possibly can without diluting everything.
You'll have to share with us some of your music because we'd love to
Yeah,
hear your music. It'd
I
be
would love that.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Love that. You have to bring in your whole self. It's is what it's all about.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your whole self and let's talk about hair color.
Yes.
So you and I had a great conversation. You had mentioned earlier in your workplace experience with your hair color becoming a defining moment in reclaiming your self-expression. How has that moment shaped the way you now lead, especially when creating safe, inclusive places for others to show up as their full selves?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had this experience where I was working on a tech startup, and a lot of people were, you could have tattoos at tech startups, you could have piercings. I'm coming from, at this point, really corporate nonprofit where we couldn't even wear jeans unless a certain leader was not in the office that day. And like their assistant would send out a little memo. It was like, hey, she's not going to be here tomorrow, so everyone can wear jeans. And so I'm coming from this experience into startup, and it's a totally different shift. I've always wanted to have inside, my favorite color is purple. And I love the color pink, which is why I'm loving Natalie's outfit today. And so I really wanted to bring my internal self outside. And I had always wanted to dye my hair. And I have very dark hair with like red undertones. And so bleaching this is no small feat. And I went through the process, and other people at the company had colored hair. And so I just felt so myself finally. I could walk around, and I just had this beautiful lavender with pink little pieces of it, and it was like my favorite hairstyle I'd ever had. And I was moving with my company, and there was this miscommunication that happened, which is probably the most positive version of what I can call it now in hindsight. Now being a people and culture leader and being a manager, I can look at it as it was totally a miscommunication. There were a lot of people involved. The manager at the time that had agreed for me to move out with this company, we had talked about a certain version of, hey, if you start doing sales stuff, then we'd have to talk about your hair. And I was like, got it. And then she left, and then the telephone game happened, and I had signed my lease, and I had already had my move already booked. And then they said, okay, but when you get out there, you have to change your hair color. And I just remember feeling, wait a second, did I miss something? I'm confused. And of course, they tried to say, well, if you can't do that, then you don't have to go. And I go, well, there's nothing I can do now. I have to go. I have the move. I have all the things organized. I'm already on that path. And so I had to kind of sit with myself and say, okay, I'm just going to have to deal with it. I'm just going to have to like push it down and deal with it. And of course, it was really hard to wrestle with that because for a little bit, I felt like I was finally expressing myself in the way I wanted to. And here I was being told to put it back inside. And I think it's because certain leaders weren't comfortable with that. And that was their only leverage. And so now I can kind of see it for what it was. But back then, it was really hard to wrestle with it. And it actually ultimately pushed me to leave this company and to move down to Austin, which is what I've always wanted to do, even before I moved out to California, where I was at the time. And I'm really glad that it kind of took me on that path and it taught me all of that. And then when I started being a founder and I started hiring people, and when I started working in recruiting at my first company doing that, it was really great that I now had this ability to go, how someone expresses themselves on the outside has no impact on their job.
Yeah.
And there were managers that I had worked with at some points after this experience that would say, yeah, but their hair. And I would go, absolutely not. We're not talking about that. And I would almost like go on a little bit of a tirade, like a little soapbox. And
Yeah.
so I would just have to constantly ask questions like, why does that matter for this role? Give me more understanding of why that, and no one could answer that question. And so I think it really taught me a lot about like the biases that we all have, the things that we're taught and we're shown when we're coming up in our jobs. And we tend to do the things that we see other people doing in similar roles before us. And so I kind of took it as an opportunity to really hopefully promote change, that we don't have to be so regimented on how people express themselves. And I'm blessed that I've worked with a lot of great managers who really do want people to be themselves, but just don't know how to make it happen. And so I've had the pleasure to help them go, okay, let's make this possible on your team so you can be the manager that you want to be and the leader that you want to be.
Interesting about it too, Kelsey, is you went through it. You had a learning experience about it. So then going forward, you were able to accentuate, hey, you know what, can be your authentic self because
Yeah.
you had that experience. I lived that story. So now I don't want anybody else living that story. I want it to be a positive thing, right?
Absolutely. And I think something that my co-founder Courtney and I talk a lot about, and I think we've talked about it on our podcast too, is sometimes you're not in completely safe environments to be your authentic self. And that is something you have to just be aware of and try to figure out if that is an environment that you're in and you don't want to be in that kind of environment, then how can you move towards the environment that will let you? But sometimes there are moments where it is safer to not pull it out and to not put yourself into vulnerable positions, especially if you need that job and you want to stay for X amount of time. But I think it's just all about making the decision, and everything is a choice, whether you're hiring someone or you're that person joining a company in an environment. And so I think it's important that you feel the feeling and you're consciously doing it and then figuring out where can I go from there. I've always found better and better places the more I have those kind of experiences, or relationships. I've left relationships or friendships where I can't say the thing, and if I can't say the thing to you, then why am I here?
Love that.
Percent.
Love
Yeah.
it.
And a lot has to do with culture, doesn't it? Company
Yeah.
culture has everything to do with it.
Culture is actually in how people wake up every morning. Culture is how feedback is given. Culture is how promotions happen. Culture is how meetings are run and documentation is served and education and how people converge together. And I was recently in this tech week conference and they were talking about culture. And here we are in 2025, and the whole panel was talking about holiday parties, run clubs, happy hours. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this is like 2013 all over again. Haven't we learned that that's actually not culture? Culture is who you hire, how you hire, why you hire. Everything starts with the people you bring in. They're all going to change and affect it, each individually. And I think it's, of course, comes from the top, it comes from the founders, it comes from the leaders. And there's a lot of leaders I've had to sit in rooms with and have to go, yeah, but don't we want to be different?
Mhm.
And then silence. And you are always just very accustomed to what they think culture is, but really it's like the active decisions that we make that either uphold everyone's ability to be honest and do really good work or cut it down.
Mhm. 100% agree. Interesting.
I'm with you. Culture is
Yeah.
definitely very much around the people. I love the fact that you said about the effect that people can have. So one person joining an organization and, the energy that can be brought and the difference that you can make from a cultural perspective. So you are spot on.
Mhm. So, Kelsey, we talked about unlearning the idea that mistakes equals punishment. So,
Oh,
for
yeah.
women in leadership who still struggle with that internalized pressure to be perfect, we all do. What helped you shift from shame to growth, and how can others begin that process?
Ooh, yeah, I had an earlier story in my career. I think it was my first job where I made a mistake and my boss didn't talk to me for 2 whole weeks.
Wow.
She would pass by my desk and I was her assistant. So to not have your manager for 2 weeks not talking to you, it was pretty rough. And so of course, I learned that very early. I have my own history of perfectionism as an older sibling, as an older daughter, or eldest daughter in my family. And what I had to go through later on in my career was how to unlearn this constant need for perfection. And it's a journey. I'm still on it. I call myself a recovering perfectionist. And one of the things that really have helped me, or I guess two of them, first is when I started working with Courtney, as she took me under her wing 8 years ago, and it was my first recruiting role, and I made a mistake. And I went to her and I just said, I'm so sorry I did this. What can I do about it? And she really just kind of showed me that everything is fixable. We're not in a hospital, we're not in surgery, we're not, keeping people alive. Um, Everything is fixable. And I have honestly learned in the last 8 years, everything is truly fixable. It's about asking for help. It's about admitting when something happens as early as possible. No one can fix anything and help you fix it if you don't come up and talk about it.
Mhm.
And that is the hardest thing because we have all this shame and this guilt. We all want to do a really great job and we just want people to see our value. So of course it comes from a really like great like valuable space, but we have this internalized shame and guilt. And so it's hard to say I'm sorry and it's hard to say I'm wrong and it's hard to admit that something didn't work out. And a book I recently read by Adam Grant, who's one of my favorite writers, he talks a lot about it's think again. And it was very much about the scientific mindset of take the experimentation approach. Okay, I think this is how it's going to happen. Here is my hypothesis. Here's what I'm going to do. And here's how I'm going to know if it's working or not. And that kind of helped me reframe the like, it doesn't have to be 100% amazing. It can be kind of bad as long as you're learning something from it
Mhm.
and you're not doing like repeating the same mistake twice. And I think that's the harder thing is like, I think when we have that shame and that guilt and we don't admit when we're wrong, we are then more prone to making the same mistake twice.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important to share here's what I'm going to try to do about it and pivoting as soon as you start seeing things that are not going in the same
Mhm.
direction of like, oh, I'm learning about this. Here's what I'm taking from it. And so that kind of brought me into like, then you have the retrospective and you have the reflection of what was my intent here? What was I trying to get out of it? And what did I learn about myself through it? And that's kind of where reflection is like a really important part of that. You can't have the experimentation and the learning from it if you don't reflect on it. And the reflection part is also a hard part because then you have to admit to yourself that like this didn't go as I thought it was going to go. And when you start doing that in front of other people, it actually opens up other doors for them to feel comfortable to do it as well. And sometimes I think it's all about saying, like, I was wrong. And that immediately takes the load off of everyone else to have to then admit themselves that they were wrong. So I find it's been a process and it's still happening. I still have moments where I'm like, this has to be perfect and we have to launch this perfectly. Even yesterday, as I'm like writing something, I'm like, it has to be perfect. But I'm actually like, enjoying the just get it out. Just get it done, just get it out. People are not going to notice some of the things that you're going to notice. And as long as you're learning and you're taking feedback and you're doing something with it, that's all that matters.
All right. I got another question for you regarding your career path. Your career path is anything but linear. From music, startups to people and culture, and now Evermore. What advice would you give women who feel off course in their careers, but sense there's something more authentic waiting for them?
Ooh, such a good question. I would probably tell them what I tell my sister a lot because she tends to have the same thought. Timing is never going to be perfect. Sometimes it's just going to take a little longer, but what's meant for you will always happen when it needs to happen. I try to rush things a lot. I try to future trip a lot. I do a lot of the, well, at this point I want to be here and at this point I want to be there, and not, of course none of it is ever going to happen. If I could talk to myself 10 years ago, where was I? 2015, and say all the things that have happened in the last 10 years, I think they would be shocked. I think they'd be like, that was not on our bingo card. That is not on any of the plan. And so I think while my career looks chaotic sometimes, I think it's important that I've learned something from each experience that has kind of like cascaded me to the next thing. And sometimes those little pivots are really important to your growth. And so if you ever feel off course, I think that's where I would probably bring it back to reflection again of really get crisp on, why do you feel off course? What is your North Star? Where are you trying to go? What does success even look like for you? And I think sometimes people get really surprised when they finally go through that kind of journaling or reflection and self awareness of, where do I want to be? And I think sometimes you just have to put it on paper and really think about it and really see every day as like a step towards that. And that's essentially what I'm building within Evermore, is a way to have more reflection and like North Star towards, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's what I want my life's mission to be. And how do I create growth elements every step of the way that can help me get there, and reflect on my process and progress so far, so I know that I'm taking small steps, and it's the small steps incrementally that will always get you to where you need to be, as long as you
Yeah,
listen to yourself.
oh, 100%. You're spot on. Tell us more about Evermore and what you got going on, because it's incredible what you're building out.
Yeah. So Evermore is an AI career coach. So fundamentally, it's packed with all of this curated knowledge that me and my co founders have put together from our experience as people and culture leaders, as founders, as managers, the things that we've experienced, and that the kind of advice that we would give managers or employees that we work with. And it's a small learning model. So very different than most AI models. It where your stuff that you put into the AI also feeds for everyone else. We focus on Evermore as a tool, as a career coach, learns you. It helps you define your North Star. So again, like reflection prompts to get you there, and then your growth path, which is 3 to 6 month incremental process or progress workflows. So you say, okay, here's my North Star. Maybe in the next 3 to 6 months, I want to learn this, or I want to develop this skill, or I want to develop this habit, or I want to accomplish this thing. And the growth path is different than what typically you see when you have a goal in a company system. Those are usually like OKRs, they're more regimented to the role, the company's goals, and those are great. But we focus on, this is for you as a career. So you are the CEO of your career, you are the owner of your career. Your company, your manager should not dictate that. And I think that also was born out of having my own experiences where I had managers telling me where I needed to go next instead of involving me in the conversation of where do you want to go next.
Mhm.
We created this AI career coach. We have 5 personalities and you can switch between them. So actually, what's funny is when I was prepping for this conversation, I thought, well, I usually use Ember, which is like the inner fire, the challenger persona of the coaches. And then I switched to Sage, which is more like wise, elder, advise. And I kind of had it take me through, help me answer how I would talk about my story and help me understand how I would share nuggets of information. And so we think of the coaches when you're chatting with them as little like advisory board. You can switch in and out of River, Ember, Stone, Sage, Daisy, whenever you're needing a different type of coach's persona, as well as when you're having the hard conversation with someone, you can role play that conversation and giving someone feedback or taking their feedback based on how you see their personality and how it kind of matches with some of the archetypes. So we've built this kind of way that you can ultimately have better conversations and work better with people because that's what AI should be able to do. AI should not be there to replace someone's job or do their job for them. And there's actually no way that AI can have the hard conversation for people. And that is usually like the fundamental day-to-day experience of any role. All of our work is, yes, we're doing like output and we're building projects and we're launching things, and that's fine. And you can use AI to kind of automate some of those workflows, but you can't use AI to have the conversation with someone because that is where
Love
like
it.
the relational dynamic comes into play. But you can
Yep.
help it, it can be there to help you tell your story. So if you're preparing for a performance review, maybe you need to reflect on what have I actually accomplished. And so we have these side quests now coming out into the app where you can do little preps. You can prep for a performance review. You can write a little love note to yourself. You can reflect on the full moon, which is something I do on a monthly basis, and it's a very big cycle thing for me. And so we're trying to kind of put a little bit of, it's all whimsical. And I think that is the most important part of technology is like making it a really great experience for people while also protecting their data, while also helping them have the hard conversations and just making work better for all of us because we're better together when we can work together.
100%. Wow, what a clever idea.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Nat, what do you think?
It's
Clever.
it honestly, it's phenomenal, and I've been thinking, right, okay, I could use some sage. I definitely need. I'm thinking that the stone might be the the kind of like the firmer or harder conversation, but I also want an injection of fire as well, so a bit of amber.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ember,
well, a little
Ember's my
bit of
favorite.
each.
Fantastic, so
Yeah.
clever.
Wow. How can
And
our viewers have access to Evermore?
yeah, so I'll make sure you have the link for your show notes, but you can follow us on LinkedIn. We're Evermore. Our website is evermore.so. We are on Instagram, so we're also Evermore So on Instagram. So it's really easy to find us. Go to our website, learn more about us, follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn as Evermore So, because we just believe that we're more than just our jobs. We're more than just our role. We're more than the title. We're more than the salary. And we just want to make your career work for you because that's ultimately what's going to help you align to your life's path.
Great idea.
Thank you.
Very, very
Phenomenal,
smart.
absolutely phenomenal, so
Yeah.
exciting.
Well,
So,
Natalie, I'm going to segue it over to you for our mid-show entertainment.
okay, everyone, let's take a moment together. We're at the halfway point, so whatever you are right now, pause. Take a breath in. And remember, you have the power to create change, to influence the world around you, and to lead with humility, empathy, and intention. This is your reminder to straighten that crown, girlfriend. You've absolutely got this. Feeling a little more grounded, a little more lifted? Good, because we've only just got started. Back to you, Dan.
Let's speak courage over conformity. Earlier in your career, you felt pressure to fit a traditional definition of success: titles, money, long term roles. What does success look like for you now, and how can women give themselves permission to redefine it on their own terms?
Yeah, my parents were baby boomers. I watched my parents stay at companies for 15 to 20 years. Actually, my
Mhm.
dad was probably the one that bounced around the most. He probably inspired a little bit of the like, go towards the thing that fulfills you and gets you excited. My mom stayed at companies for a very long time. And when I was in college, I remember one of my classes, they had mentioned my generation at that time, and this is 15, 16 years ago. At that time, they were predicting that the millennial generation was going to have 17 different jobs in their career by the time that they retire, which at that time was a lot. I think I'm already at 15 or 16, and I'm only halfway through my career, which
You.
is wild. But how I see success now is more, am I fulfilled? Am I helping people? Am I feeling connected to myself? Am I feeling expressive? Am I learning things? Am I able to get through a workday and not feel so tired? And I actually feel like that's more successful for me than anything. Of course, like you need money to live in this world. Unfortunately, it's not a barter system yet. I would love to get back to communal, small knit bartering. So maybe one day I'm going to have my farm and I'm going to live on it. And that's a
One day
dream of
you
mine.
will. Not
Yeah,
one day. You will have your farm
I will.
and
I
you will
will.
live on it.
Yeah, exactly. No, and of course, like bringing it back to Evermore, that's one of the first exercises we encourage people to do is their North Star, is figure out at the end of everything, what does that look like for you? Who do you want to be inspired by you? Who do you want to remember you? And I think it's important to look into your future, peer into the glass, and sometimes it's just a matter of reflecting and saying, what does that success look like when I'm 60, when I'm 70? And for me, of course, I'm building Evermore and I very much want this to be like my last thing for the rest of my life. But I also very much want to take that success from what I can build here and put it into the creative community because that is one of the biggest, deepest, longest connections I have is the creative arts. I would love to have a foundation one day. I would love to be able to give back and support other people, especially kids. I was blessed to have a really great support system and a creative support system in my school district. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have had access to all of the things that have gotten me to opera and nonprofit arts. So I think it's all about trying to find what drives you and then putting together the plans of like, how do I get there and how do I take small steps? But ultimately, success is, am I feeling fulfilled? Do I feel like I have a lot of excitement? And if that starts to change, then it means that I'm being redirected elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So you speak about reflection, Kelsey. We just spoke about reflection. Can you share how women can build a reflection practice into their own lives to stay aligned with who they truly are? What is your magic potion?
My magic potion. Oh, that's a good one. So I've written about this recently around how to create a reflection practice. I think it really just depends on everybody has their own version of when do they reflect. Do they reflect in the shower? Do they reflect over a cup of coffee? Do they reflect when they're on a run? Whatever works for anyone, I think will work for them. And so I like tarot. I read my tarot every Sunday. Sometimes it's Saturday, sometimes it's Sunday, but I read my tarot. I do a Celtic spread every week and I ask it a question, like a question of the week of what am I feeling? What am I thinking? And I like tarot because it allows me to kind of see something maybe in a different way than I normally would be feeling it. There's also journaling. I'm an avid journaler. And I recently wrote about this every end of the year. I love New Year's. I'm a very cyclical person. I journal on the full moons. I journal halfway through the year, like my midpoint check in. I journal at the end of every month. I have a little passion planner, which takes me through here's my monthly reflection and who am I grateful for. And so, of course, all of those things are on paper. And that's what the
Mhm.
whole purpose of Evermore is. Like, it should be a regular practice. And so, we have weekly reflections that we take all of our users through. We have the side quests that also allow you to reflect on certain other themes. But I think it's really important to have those moments of routine for yourself on whatever schedule works for you and come and use AI however you want to pull questions down. Sometimes with Evermore, I actually ask it like ask me one question at a time. Here are the questions I have, but ask me one question at a time. I like to journal though, and I like to do all my full moon journals. And so recently to close out 2025, and I'm now on this little practice, I started going back to January 2025's full moon and I read the journal entries around that time. And it was a very trippy experience because I was actually foreseeing all of what I've actually now gone through and currently going through at the end of the year.
Wow.
All within that, I was like almost manifesting. This is what I was thinking about. This is what I was learning. This is what I was envisioning in my future. And I've now gone through that. And I think it's a really important practice to just sit with yourself and see the past and then see how far you've come. Because what an exciting experience to go, wow, look at all the things I did. And
Accomplishments. Yeah.
I actually took word for word one of my journal entries and I put into an article. And I wanted to express that, like, this is where I was processing. And I'm now a stronger person because of everything I've had to go through in the entire year.
Wow.
That's so powerful. I'm feeling like I need to do the same thing.
And Evermore makes it really easy for people that are not in a like I have a lot of friends who are not used to reflecting like that. And I think it's just really important to have a system that really cares about you, that learns you, that understands you and where you're trying to grow, what you've done. And there's really a lot of power in the like getting into a habit. It's just a muscle. It's like singing, it's like running, it's like anything that requires a muscle. Reflection is also just a mental muscle.
Okay, I'm gonna go and get fit.
Get yourself
Oh,
fit.
So, Kelsey, in people and culture, you've seen how authenticity and vulnerability can transform a workplace. How do you balance being human and honest while still maintaining professional credibility and boundaries?
Mm, wow. That's a really good one. I'm going to get vulnerable here for a second. I'm typically an oversharer. and um, I feel like if any of my friends or people that work with me or have worked with me or listen to this, they're going to go, yeah, Kelsey can be an oversharer. I'm train of thought comes out. And I had to learn as I was stepping into management and as I was stepping into people and culture as a leader, as a founder, authenticity doesn't mean oversharing. Authenticity just means being honest. And sometimes it's about saying the thing that everybody else in the room wants you to say and saying it in a way that still has respect and in a way that still has vulnerability without over explaining, overdoing it. I do think boundaries come from clarity of what is mine to say and what is not mine to say. And one of the hardest parts about being a people and culture leader or an HR leader or a leader is sometimes you know things that other people can't know yet. And it can mess with you. I had to do my first riff at a company in January 2025. And that was one of the hardest experiences of my entire career because I have all of this empathy for people that are now going to be impacted by this. I also had no ability to withhold the company from even getting there in the position I was in. And it was one of the hardest things. And so in those moments, I actually had to from people. because I knew that I wear my heart on my sleeves. I wear my emotions out loud. And I had to protect the fact that I don't want to make other people uncomfortable or scared because of that. And that was really hard to wrestle with. How do I still show up authentically while also protecting other people's peace, especially those that were not going to be impacted by it? And that's, of course, just one example. But I think you have to have enough boundaries, of course, in leadership. And I think it really comes down to know when it's okay to say something and know when it's not okay to say something. And that's only for you to know as a leader. I don't know if I answered that question very well.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
yeah,
I
you did.
yes, you did. You nailed
Okay.
it.
Okay, good. I was like, where am I going with this?
So interesting. I could talk with you for hours. You and I, wow, and Natalie, the three of us, we could talk for hours about so many things. Wonderful. So we spoke about Evermore earlier in the episode. I'm really curious. So Evermore seems like the culmination of your personal and professional evolution. What inspired you to create a reflection tool to help others understand themselves? And how does it empower women to own their story and next chapter?
So, me, Courtney, and Scott have worked all together. And there were moments where in leadership or in working with managers and working with people, we kept saying, I really wish there was a tool that could help you do this, help you understand your impact, help you collect things over time. And I think in this society and the world that we live in, it's really easy to close up a week and then not remember anything that you did the next week. Initially was born out of performance reviews, which we don't believe in performance reviews. I actually think they're a huge waste of time. They're not intentional in most places. They're actually not used for people's growth whatsoever. They're used for more top grading and more like how to ensure who are we promoting and who are we going to recognize more so than anything else. And it's all theater. How can we make these things more tangible and valuable and actually helping people understand themselves and collect things over time? And so it has morphed in its own way over the last few months as we've actually been developing it and understanding our market and working with investors. And I'm really glad that we've gone into the more let's go straight to the individual and not the company, because most times that's where like company tools end up being, yeah, track all your wins. But then if you leave the company, you have no access to that anymore.
Yeah.
And so then you almost lose this story that you have actually accumulated over time in your job. And so then we thought, well, what if we create this system where it's reflection based, it's attached to a North Star, you own your own growth path, your manager doesn't, your company doesn't. And how can we use that kind of data and progress over time to essentially create your resume for you? Because that is also the one of the other annoying parts about recruiting and hiring is that we all have these resumes, but we manually create it ourselves. And so it's diluted in our own way of here's how I see myself and here's what I've done. And a lot of it's just jobbing. There's actually no value in it. And so when I read resumes, I parse through and I go, okay, they did the job. But I really care about tell me about when you had this experience, or tell me when you had a project that you managed, or tell me when you got really hard feedback and what did you do with that? Because that actually tells you way more than all the jobbing that someone can do in their career. So then we thought, like, well, how can we take all of this reflection data and create a way that tangibly tells your story the way you want to be told? And you have almost your online persona, you have your online portfolio, your resume, and it lives and breathes and it updates based on all the things that you do and all the feedback you get and what you've done with the feedback. I foresee a world where we're going to have better conversations, better hiring, more intentional understanding of who someone is. And it's just going to make our lives and our work a lot better in the future. So it was born in this way of how can we? And I love those kind of things. Selfishly, I'm building the tool that I've always wanted. And I think that's the biggest part of my North Star is how can I build things for myself that also help other people? And we're essentially all building the tool. We're coming up with things of here's what I do. How can we build that into the tool for other people to also leverage? I create for myself and then I put it out into the world. And that's very much something that is part of my human design. I'm very into human design, and that's very much a cyclical thing. I have an experience and I make it better and I put it out into the world. And it's just this constant cycle of that.
Oof,
Fantastic, Kelsey.
Thank you.
love it. Can't wait, honestly, just can't wait to get on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Wow. Well, let's wrap this show up. We've got a very special request from you, Kelsey.
Okay.
So I know earlier before the show, we talked about writing a love note to your former self. So I wanted to see if you would be comfortable with sharing that with our viewers. That young woman of you just starting her career and learning what authenticity truly means. What would your love note say to her today?
Most of my entire life, and I've been talking about this a lot with friends, family, in general, of what I'm building as a company, I've always felt too much. I've always felt too expressive, too intense, too emotional, too sensitive, too everything. I think for a lot of my life and my career, especially, and in relationships, I've tended to dim it down of don't say the thing, don't make waves, don't have conflict, don't show your emotions. And it never actually got me anywhere, like truly authentic and truly valuable. So lately in my life, I've been really having to remind myself a lot that, like, you're not too much for the right people and the right places and the right
Mhm.
things. And so I would probably start with if I could write a love note to like my younger self coming out of college, it would be take up space, say the thing. I wish I could go back sometimes into the earlier part of my career and say the ideas I had as an intern, as an assistant, um, as someone who was working around salespeople who were just not doing their jobs really well. And I eventually learned how to express that self and say all the things. I'd also probably say all the wrong turns and pivots aren't failures. They're actually helping you get to the place that you need to go and the path that you need to be on. And I would also say trust your gut as much as possible. My intuition is actually how I make a lot of my decisions. I recently just mentioned human design, but my authority is my sacral, and that's in my human design. And once I really started understanding how I can use my energy for the best of my abilities, it's always coming back to my gut is never wrong. And my intuition is never wrong. There have been way too many times in the last 10, 15 years that I have not trusted it. And I can look back and point to everything. Yep, I didn't listen to it at that point, and this is how it got me 3 years later to this. And so I would also say, like, journal. I only started picking up journaling in the last 5 to 6 years outside of songwriting. Songwriting was like earlier time journaling, and I still have some of those journals. I will never crack those open. I am not wanting to see those. Um, but I would say probably start journaling earlier because I think it really helped me to understand parts of myself that I needed to see to have better relationships and better value and feel more connected to myself. So I guess my love letter is trust yourself, take up space, seek out the people that treat themselves as a good friend because I want to be around people that know themselves, that want to know themselves, that want to grow, and that take care of themselves like a friend would.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Deep. That's deep.
Thank you.
I hope that the cat didn't interrupt too much when she jumped on the record behind us. Anyway, it was going to
Oh,
happen at some point, Deb.
Yeah, cats.
entertaining. Kelsey's got cats. Kelsey, you've got a cat back there. You've got a cat exercise pole,
I
right?
do, but I don't have any cats in my house. My cats are with my mom in Illinois, and
Oh,
she's really enjoying having them. I think at first she was, "Can you come and get them?" I'm in a lot of life transition right now, which is what I did to myself for 2025. And so I'm trying to sell my house or rent it out. And so I decided to leave my cats with my mom just for the purpose of it. But
gotcha.
normally they're running around on this wall.
There'll come a time in these episodes, I'm certain of it, Natalie, that your cat's tail is going to come across the front of you. It's going to go this way.
Well,
I would love to see that.
she jumps straight on the record. So yeah,
Oh,
but
That's
well, let's pause.
that's not the one that we'll close out with. So thank goodness.
No, no. Well, this was absolutely wonderful. We're going to take it to the end of show here. And Natalie, we're going to take it to you. And Kelsey, thank you so much for being our guest on the podcast. What beautiful knowledge and experiences that you share with all of us. And good luck with Evermore. I think
Thank
you've
you.
got some major successes coming your way with
Thank
that.
you. It's been such a pleasure chatting with both of you. So thank you for having me.
An incredible conversation, a powerful reminder of what happens when women step into their voice, their influence, and their full potential. Every woman listening today carries that same strength within her. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of Birth to Boardroom. Keep rising, keep leading, and keep showing the world what's possible when women back themselves. And before you go, share this episode and invite others into our global community of empowered women. Don't forget to visit www.birthtoboardroom.com and join the movement.